Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Gifts of Pure Consciousness. If you're new here, welcome. I'm grateful you have chosen to spend time in a space grounded in stillness, sincerity, and honest reflection. And if you have been walking this path with me for a while, thank you for coming back. By now, you know this space unfolds gently, layer by layer, one breath, one insight at a time. Today's episode runs a little longer because what we are exploring is layered, real, and too important to rush. This journey isn't about having all the answers, it's about choosing awareness over avoidance and depth over distraction. In a world of constant noise and endless opinions, this space holds room for stillness, for deeper thought, and for honest reflection. It offers something more grounded, something more real. It's rooted in exploration, guided not by fixed conclusions, but by meaningful questions that invite us inward. I'm Utkarsh, not a guru, not a master, but a student of stillness and emotional truth. And if you're feeling stuck, tired, or quietly overwhelmed, this episode is for you. You may not be crying, you may not even look sad, but inside there's a heaviness you can't quite explain. Because depression isn't always loud, sometimes it's quiet, like waking up tired, no matter how long you have slept, knowing what needs to be done, yet feeling unable to do it. It's not just sadness, it's emotional paralysis. You want to move forward, but a part of you feels stuck, frozen in place. On the outside, it might look like laziness, but deep down, it's not about effort, it's not about willpower, it's about direction, it's about safety, it's about needing to feel anchored before you can move. And what you're experiencing right now is your nervous system responding to a perceived threat, one it cannot fully name or make sense of. Yes, I'm bringing up those two words again, nervous system. And I'm doing it right at the start, and that's intentional. Because understanding this isn't just helpful, it's foundational. It forms the bedrock of your inner transformation. It's the head start you didn't know you needed, the key to unlocking the life you were always meant to live, free, grounded, and no longer weighed down by internal chaos. This isn't just about surviving tough days, because when you're caught in that fog where fear, stress, and overwhelm take over, everything becomes harder. Even joy feels just beyond reach. And the more you try to force your way out of it, the more disconnected and broken you start to feel. So let's be honest about something. Every single day, some of you are fighting battles, not just out there in the world, but deep within your own mind. Battles with your emotions, with your distractions, with your self doubt, with your inability to follow through. This right here is one of the most important challenges we all face, the inner struggle. And in this space, there's always a choice. You can turn away from it and remain where you are, or you can gently turn towards it and begin to grow. As a conscious being, your role is not to repress the struggle. Your role is to meet it, to train for it, to grow through it. This is how the inner warrior is forged, not through aggression, but through awareness. Not by winning every time, but by showing up with devotion. Each challenge becomes training, each trigger becomes a test, each failure becomes a forge. And no, this doesn't mean you become cold or hardened. It means you become clear, resilient, rooted in your own strength. My own life experiences have taught me growth doesn't come from avoiding the fire, it comes from walking through it with presence, with honesty, and with heart. Not just surviving, but transforming through the fire of lived experience. In this episode, we'll explore something that touches all of us, the quiet, invisible inner war we carry within. It's not just a poetic phrase, it's a lived experience, a struggle that affects not just our emotions, but also our brain, our body, and our sense of identity. Let's bring in a bit of neuroscience here to deepen our understanding. There's a powerful circuit in the brain called the default mode network. It becomes highly active when we are lost in thought, especially thoughts about ourselves. Not when we are solving problems, not when we are fully present, but when we are replaying, looping, ruminating. Now, just to spark a little bit of curiosity, here's a quick glimpse at a brain region called the precuneus, highlighted in this diagram. We'll talk more about its role as we move through the episode, This region plays a key role in what's known as self consciousness, not the awkward kind, but the reflective kind. It's how we process who we are, what we have lived through, and how we believe others see us. It helps us shape our identity, navigate emotions, and interpret our social experiences. But under stress, this part of the brain can become overactive. And when that happens, healthy self awareness can tip into overthinking, self doubt, and emotional paralysis. Here's the deeper truth: that very pattern of constantly thinking about yourself might be the thing keeping you stuck in emotional pain. So, if there's one thing I hope you take away from this episode, it's this: you're not weak for struggling, you're training, and your effort matters more than you may ever realize. Now, with that in mind, let's take one layer deeper. Because that inner war you're fighting, it doesn't always show up as sadness. It doesn't always look like exhaustion. Sometimes it shows up as ego. Now, I know when most people hear the word ego, they picture arrogance. They picture someone loud, someone self centered, someone who always needs to be right. But that's just one surface level expression. In the last episode, we briefly introduced this image, a visual doorway into the deeper layers of ego. It's a concept we'll be returning to often in this series. So here's a reflection rooted in both yogic wisdom and modern neuroscience. Ego isn't just pride, it's the part of us stuck in survival mode, in the lower chakras where fear, control, and insecurity dominate. It's not wrong, it's just where many of us begin. But growth begins with awareness. To rise, we have to move beyond the survival mind and awaken the higher self. We'll explore that awakening more deeply in episode 9 as we trace the chakra system and revisit the Kundalini journey from episode 2. But for now, just remember this: ego is the veil, a protective shell built by the mind to keep us safe, even if it keeps us small. It's the inner narrator constantly whispering, am I enough? Do they like me? Am I doing this right? Ancient yogis said, as long as ego holds power, true joy remains out of reach. And neuroscience agrees. In this diagram, notice the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex on the left. These regions are involved in what's known as self relevant emotional processing, which means your brain doesn't just feel an emotion, it attaches that emotion to your identity. And that's where rumination begins. You start over analyzing, looping through self judgment, asking questions like, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Instead of releasing the emotion, your brain holds on to it and the story keeps replaying. This is exactly what researchers observe in depression. The brain becomes stuck, repeating the same self focused thoughts. Even the good moments begin to lose their impact. Why? Because the goalpost keeps moving. The anxiety just shifts. That's why fixing external things, your job, your body, your status, rarely brings lasting peace. Because the real issue isn't out there, it's the inner loop we are caught in. Even something like body dysmorphia or chronic insecurity, it doesn't heal just by changing how you look. Because if the default mode network is still overactive, you'll just find something else to obsess over. Now, here's what's fascinating. Modern research shows that when this brain circuit quiets, people feel relief, a sense of lightness, presence, peace. Even in clinical settings, compounds like ketamine and psychedelics have been shown to temporarily silence this circuit. And when that happens, people often report feeling more alive, less weighed down by their own thoughts. Now, let me be clear, I would never recommend that path because here we are talking about pure consciousness, and pure is a powerful word. It's what this entire series is about: a life beyond addiction, beyond external stimulation, a blissful life grounded in simply being. And based on my own meditation journey, I can tell you this with full conviction: nobody needs to get high to get healthy. We'll dive deeper into the topic of addiction in another part of this series, but for now, hold on to this truth and pass it on to someone who may be silently struggling. There is a cleaner, more sustainable way: meditation. And I cannot recommend that enough because it works. Meditation has been shown to reduce activity in the default mode network, in quieting the inner narrator and helping us reconnect with the present moment. Pure consciousness isn't magic, it's a slow, steady awakening built through discipline, stillness, and self honesty, one breath at a time. If you've been with me since episode 1, you've seen this series evolve, not just in structure, but in depth and clarity. I'm still a student in this process, learning as I create, growing with each episode, and sharing what I can from lived experience. This isn't a polished performance, it's raw, it's real, and it comes from doing the inner work, walking through the fire, and coming out with something true. This space is built on truth, not perfection, on healing, not performing. The intention here is simple to keep moving forward with compassion and awareness so that fewer souls are pushed to the edge and more find their way back to themselves. Instead of quietly watching others spiral, maybe the quiet role of an evolving human is simply to offer another way. Not by preaching, not by controlling, but by gently reminding others of the strength they already carry. The strength to grow, to rise above fear, above anxiety, above emotional chaos. Because healing isn't about fixing what's broken, it's about remembering what's always been there, what's always been within. But let's be honest, these days, awareness alone isn't enough. We need tools, real ones, practices that bring us back to center, to ground, to reset, to heal from the inside out. That's the intention behind this series, to offer something real and supportive. That's why I pour my energy into creating tangible frameworks, not from a place of mastery, but from the humble posture of a fellow seeker who is still learning and still walking. Like the one we explored in the last episode, the four levels of the mind: the restless mind, the conflicted mind, the aware mind, and the aligned mind. These aren't just ideas, they are maps, internal road signs, helping us see where we are and where we still have space to rise. Because deep down, we all know we are not meant to stay stuck. We are meant to evolve, to live with more peace, more clarity, and more alignment. Now, before we move into the next segment, I want to share a quick note. What you are about to hear involves a deeply disturbing and emotional event. It's not shared for shock value, but to shine light on the deeper issues we often ignore. So take a breath, and if you need to pause, please do. Let's move forward. Recently, I came across a heartbreaking headline from India. A 59-year-old woman repeatedly stabbed her 17-year-old daughter over an exam result discrepancy. A 17-year-old, gone far too soon. And she didn't deserve to lose her life. Not over marks, not over pressure, not because of a system that ties our worth to performance, but because of a mother who was hurting, someone who never even got the chance to understand or heal her own emotions. And that's the deeper tragedy. Because so many of us are silently carrying unimaginable distress, and yet the root causes rarely comes to light. We don't even talk about it in those terms. Processing emotions, healing old wounds. It's not even part of our everyday language, even though it should be. So let's ask the honest questions. What if that mother had known she was living with a restless mind? What if she had the awareness to see how her past was shaping her present? What if she had the courage to admit that in her pain she was capable of harming the one she was meant to protect? Could she have made a different choice instead of the unthinkable one that ended her daughter's life? The heartbreaking truth is yes, there was a choice, and that 17-year-old could still be alive today. So let's sit with the uncomfortable questions. Whose fault was it? Why would a mother take life of her own daughter? Here's the deeper truth, one that's hard to face. Most people never learn to accept how flawed we really are. Our ego drives us recklessly, unconsciously, and we don't even realize when it's time to take the ego out of the driver's seat. Sometimes just a few honest hours of reflection can begin to reveal the chaos we've been carrying within. But ego, it convinces us the problem is out there, when really it's the power we give to the outside world that fuels our inner chaos. And this is why Pure Consciousness Project means so much. It's not about philosophy, not just about neuroscience. It's about real lives, real emotions, real consequences. It's humbling, it's necessary, and it's rooted in the search for a new way to live, a way that doesn't rely on violence, reactivity, or emotional suppression. Because sadly, this isn't an isolated case. There are countless stories like this unfolding across the world. Stories of pain, pressure, and emotional collapse. Stories where awareness could have made all the difference. We can only hope that this mother finds a way to face the consequences of the mental storm that brought her to such a devastating place. that she learns to live not as a danger to others, but as a conscious, self aware, evolving human being. And may that sweet young soul rest in peace. Speaking of mothers, my mom has recently begun her journey, a journey to consciously regulate her nervous system. For years, she has carried emotions too heavy to name, and now she's choosing to sit with them, to breathe through them, to heal. As we move forward, I'll continue to share how her awareness unfolds and how she slowly begins to reach that blissful state. Her dedication gives me no doubt that she will unlock the fourth state of consciousness and arrive at the preferred state of mind, the aligned mind. Through my own struggles, I've learned that it all begins with one thing: curiosity. Then comes the awareness, and eventually, a quiet yet powerful willingness to take responsibility for the mind, the emotions, and the chaos within. And from there, we turn to tools, not as trends, not as escape routes, but as steady practices that elevate how we live and support how we grow. Because emotional maturity isn't something we are born with, it's a skill, something we learn, something we practice, and something we grow into over time. These practices became the catalyst for my own transformation. They helped me hold up a mirror and truly see myself, not as a victim of life, but as someone capable of choosing differently. Because without that inner shift, it's easy to stay trapped in survival, constantly reacting, constantly seeking, never quite understanding why we feel the way we do. And that's why this work matters. Why this transformation is not just personal, but essential for anyone longing to break free from emotional patterns they never chose in the first place. Because once you start to see clearly, it becomes impossible to stay silent. You feel called to contribute, to offer something that might ease someone else's path. And that's what led to this. In a world flooded with information, a quiet sense of purpose has been emerging. A book unfolding slowly, shaped by years of personal insight, and planned to release in February 2026. Not just a collection of words, but a reflection of the inner work that so many are quietly moving through. At its heart is a deeply compassionate exploration of child psychology, through which today's emotional confusion begins to make sense. The process has taken time, not out of perfectionism, but from a desire to keep the message honest and grounded. This is my first book, and it feels like something long overdue, especially in spaces where such conversations are still uncommon and where silence has been the norm for too long. At some point, the feeling became undeniable. If this isn't written, many may continue to carry questions without guidance and pain without language. It's not about having all the answers, but about offering a perspective that might bring a little clarity or spark the right kind of questions. There's no rush, some things need time, time to unfold into what they are truly meant to become. And this one feels worth the wait. Moving on to the next segment, like I said at the beginning, this is a heavy episode. I'm committed to making it meaningful, something I'll return to at times, not for answers, but to stay anchored when emotions run high. Because some insights deepen each time we revisit them. So let's explore what's happening beneath the surface, in the mind, in the patterns, and in the way we process our inner world. This brings us to what I've often emphasized: the importance of calming the mind and accessing the fourth state of consciousness. Here's what the research tells us: meditation significantly reduces activity in the default mode network, the part of the brain linked to self referential thoughts, rumination, and mental noise. Meditation actually helps quiet the inner narrator, the one that keeps replaying fears, projecting expectations, and rehearsing imagined judgments. And what happened between the mother and her daughter is a heartbreaking example of what can unfold when the default mode network becomes hyperactive. She wasn't reacting to her daughter's exam results. She was reacting to the story in her mind. A story about how her relatives and community might judge her, how her carefully constructed image of a perfect future would begin to crumble if they found out her daughter had failed. The mother had built her identity around her daughter. One day she'll move abroad for higher studies. She'll be the pride of the family. She'll prove my worth through her success. This isn't ambition, this is an unconscious attachment. And it becomes dangerous when our identity is built on someone else's path. Every misstep they take feels like a collapse within us. It's not just pressure, it's entanglement of emotions, expectations, and ego. And that kind of weight is too much for any relationship to carry. The pressure she placed on her daughter wasn't just external, it came from a place of insecurity and a lifetime of unprocessed emotions. Because when emotional wounds remain unprocessed, They don't just stay buried, they spill over into our relationships, into our decisions, and into the lives of those closest to us. It's heartbreaking to witness where things are heading. And that's why change isn't just necessary, it's urgent. Change in how we speak, how we live, and how we navigate the often neglected landscape of our own minds. Because here's the truth, dissolving the ego isn't optional, it's essential. Doing the hard inner work, like we explored in episode 5, it's how we build mental strength and begin to break free from the patterns that keep us stuck. It's about rewiring the brain through consistent practice, choosing discipline over distraction, devotion over doubt, and surrendering not to fear but to a higher power that sees the whole picture even when we can't. Yes, it sounds like a lot, but it's totally worth it because peace of mind isn't a fantasy, it's a frequency. And one of the most powerful ways to tune into it is through transcendental meditation. Simple, quiet, consistent. Not just a break from life, but the beginning of a new one. Because it loosens the grip of identity and reveals what was always beneath it all, pure awareness, a stillness that doesn't silence you, but finally lets you hear yourself. And in that stillness, something opens up, a space where pain is no longer avoided, where old patterns begin to soften, where true transformation quietly takes root, a presence that asks for nothing but accepts everything. And with it comes a quiet relief, real, grounded, and lasting. Because transformation isn't about fixing how you see yourself, it's about softening the constant urge to evaluate, analyze, and prove. It's about remembering how to simply be. And speaking of presence, let's talk about a phrase we all hear all the time, live in the moment. It's catchy, but misunderstood. Because real presence is something else, and I'll explain why. Here's something most people don't know, the brain has a design flaw. It can experience hypothetical pain, but it cannot experience hypothetical pleasure. Now, what does that mean? It means when you worry about the future, you just don't imagine it. You feel the embarrassment, the failure, the heartbreak, even if it never happens. An anxious brain doesn't suffer one outcome, it suffers 100, all at once. The pain is real, even if the event is not. You can't fantasize about joy and feel true happiness. You don't get a dopamine hit just by thinking about a dream. So, what happens? You spiral into stress, but feel numb to possibility. You anticipate fear, but can't fully access hope. And this is why learning to return to the present moment isn't a spiritual trend, it's a biological necessity. It's how we regulate emotions, how we deactivate the self looping network, how we stop suffering from the imaginary futures that haven't even arrived. So, if you're in pain right now, ask yourself, are you here? Or are you lost in a mental future that hasn't even happened yet? In this next segment, I want to help you reconnect with your inner strength through the lens of a strategic warrior, someone who learns to access the deeper layers of his mind to heal, awaken, and move with clarity in a chaotic world. If you're feeling exhausted not because of your own mistakes, but because of the emotional storms stirred by others, let this sink in. You're not broken, you're simply untrained. Most of us were raised in environments that prized politeness over truth, agreeableness over authenticity, conflict avoidance over clarity. We were taught to keep the peace, to fit in, to follow the rules. From classrooms to corporate offices, from fairy tales to TED Talks. We were told that success comes from cooperation and being nice. But we were not prepared for the subtle battles of real life. We were not taught how to spot manipulation when it shows up with a smile, or how to deal with guilt that's disguised as kindness, or what to do when betrayal wears a polite face. We were trained for harmony. But let's be honest, a lot of the world operates on quiet, unspoken tension. And it's not just in politics or business, it's in families, friendships, and relationships. Silent wars fought with passive comments, withheld affection, or hidden agendas. You may find yourself drained not by loud conflict, but by quiet confusion, because your spirit senses the misalignment, even when your mind struggles to name it. This is not failure, this is an awakening. You weren't made to be endlessly nice. You are here to be clear, to be whole, to be free. This is the beginning of the path of the strategic warrior. A strategic warrior doesn't lash out, doesn't shut down, doesn't mimic the chaos around them. They observe, they listen, they respond with clarity, not reactivity. They recognize the fire within, not to burn others, but to stay warm through the storm. They don't deny their strength, they channel it. They choose their battles with intention. They know that sometimes silence is the most powerful statement. The warrior doesn't scream the truth, they embody it. They're not chasing revenge, they're walking in alignment. They're not here to win power games, they are here for peace of mind. Conflict will arise, but it doesn't have to pull you out of your center. Where most people avoid, explode, or scheme, the warrior remains steady. Their silence is grounded, their calm is earned, their boundaries are sacred. This isn't about shutting down or turning cold, it's about standing guard over your peace and staying loyal to your light. Because the world no longer shelters the innocent, it demands awareness. So if you have been feeling low, confused, or lost, trying to be good in a world that often rewards the cunning, it's time to stop performing goodness and start practicing wisdom. Remember, just because someone smiles doesn't mean they are safe. Just because you are quiet doesn't mean you're weak. And just because the world is at war doesn't mean your spirit has to be. You're not here to lose yourself in the noise. You are here to rise as a strategic spiritual warrior, rooted in love, backed by awareness, and protected by truth. And to stay rooted, we return to the breath, which brings us to the final segment of today's episode. So now you know you're not just fighting people, you're fighting pressure, expectations, invisible wars, and the mental noise that keeps looping in your nervous system long after the moment has passed. But here's the truth, one that sages and scientists agree on. The first thing chaos disrupts is your breath, and the first thing that restores your power is taking it back. This is why grounding isn't about escaping the world, it's about returning to your body, coming back to the one place that never lies. And the simplest, most powerful doorway into that is the breath. Not just the force that keeps you alive, but the guide that brings you home. When life pulls you out of alignment, there's always one place to return to, and the doorway to that is closer than you think. It all begins at a quiet gateway we often overlook, right beneath your eyes, where presence returns, where the journey inward begins. Unlike mouth breathing, which triggers the body's stress response, also known as the fight or flight mode, nasal breathing invites the opposite. It activates the relaxation response, the part of your nervous system that helps you rest, restore, and repair. In other words, it shifts you from reaction to regulation, from chaos to calm. When you sit in stillness, your breath begins to self regulate. And if you're practicing something like mantra meditation, it begins to harmonize your Vayu Tattva, the element of air, and it may even lead you to Akash Tattva, the space element. In scientific terms, this is a shift in both biology and awareness. When you breathe through your nose, especially during cardio or meditation, incredible changes begin to unfold. Oxygen uptake becomes more efficient, CO2 tolerance increases, calming your brain's panic response. Nitric oxide is produced, which is a natural antiviral, vasodilator, and anti inflammatory. Blood vessels open, heart rate stabilizes, your nervous system decompresses. And then something deeper happens. Your mind stops time traveling. It returns to the now, to the breath, to the body, to the moment that was never lost, only forgotten. Because here's the truth, your brain cannot do both at once. It cannot focus on deep conscious nasal breathing and spiral through chaos about the future and the past. That's the essence of the technique. We are training the mind to stay here, in this breath, in this moment. It becomes an anchor to presence and to clarity. That's why so many advanced yogic and meditative practices begin with the breath. Because before you can master the mind, you must first master your chemistry. Even during intense exercises, nasal breathing rewires how you process stress. You build resilience. You train your nervous system to stay calm under fire, to teach your body that even in motion, even under pressure, you are safe. Think of nasal breathing as inner armor, invisible but unshakable. And unlike external escapes, food, distraction, overthinking, it doesn't numb your pain, it releases it. To ground this even deeper, let me recommend a remarkable book. It's called The Breath by James Nestor. It explores the science, history, and the forgotten art of breathing, and how something so simple holds the key to transforming not just the mind, but the entire human health system. His research reinforces what ancient yogis already knew. When breath is trained, life transforms. Each breath taken with awareness is a vote for your healing. Each conscious inhale is a quiet revolution against panic, against dysregulation, against collapse. So, when the noise outside gets too loud, when irrational people spin you in mental circles, when your ego starts chasing control or approval, don't react, reset, breathe slow, stay grounded, come back to the present. Even just 3 to 5 minutes of mindful breathing can shift your entire state of consciousness. It's not just biology, it's alchemy. Your breath is the remote control for your nervous system. It's the bridge between mind and body. And when mastered, it becomes the fastest portal to peace, no matter the storm around you. Coming to the final part of today's episode, I'm not ending today with a fancy video, dramatic visuals, or entertainment. Because today, we spoke about life and death. And that's how serious things are in 2025. So instead, I want to leave you with something simple yet powerful. Recently, I came across Dr. Andrew Huberman's 10 and 20 minutes NSDR audio tracks, Non Sleep, Deep Rest. They are available on his website. You'll find the link in the description. Once you're on that page, scroll down to find links to YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify, whichever is preferable by you. NSDR is an umbrella term for practices that guide the mind, body into deep relaxation without actual sleep. One well known version of NSDR is Yoga Nidra, a beautiful blend of breath awareness and body scanning that leads to profound stillness and inner restoration. Now, I won't go deep into areas outside of my core focus because these four themes continue to anchor everything I create. My own transformation journey, the timeless wisdom of the East, child psychology and early emotional development, neuroscience, and the biology of healing. These aren't just interests, they are pillars, helping me make sense of both the inner and the outer world. And through them, I try to build bridges between ancient wisdom and modern understanding, between silence and science. We all live with limited data, our beliefs, our experiences, our knowledge. They are just scattered dots. And unless we gather more dots, we cannot truly connect them. And without connection, we can't make informed decisions. That's why I've taken on the role of a dot collector, seeking expert insights, real stories, and timeless wisdom. Because when you change your perspective, you change your thoughts. And one of the most precious gifts of pure consciousness is the alignment of those thoughts. Thoughts that help us appreciate life with a deep, grounded sense of gratitude. Let's come back to NSDR for a while. Here's one message I want to leave you with. It's a gentle doorway for those silently suffering but who don't yet have the words to ask for help. Some people won't admit they're drowning, not because they're arrogant, but because they're overwhelmed. Sleepless nights, racing thoughts, that quiet nervous energy that never shuts off. So here's a simple piece of advice. Put your headphones on, play that audio, close your eyes, and just chill for a bit. The rest of the world can wait. Your conflicted mind needs a break right now. And while that may seem small, sometimes the smallest acts of rest create the biggest openings for renewal. Maybe you're doing okay, but someone you love might need it more than you do. Someone carrying silent stress, someone struggling with sleep apnea, someone who hasn't truly rested in a long time. Because chronic stress doesn't just affect sleep, it clouds your thinking. It shortens your patience, weakens your immune system, and slowly it steals your joy. When left unaddressed, it can show up as fatigue, anxiety, brain fog, and even physical pain that maybe the doctors cannot explain. That's why moments of rest, as small as they seem, can become acts of protection for the mind, for the body, for the soul. So maybe this one practice could be their turning point because it doesn't just relax you, it actually shifts your brain chemistry. So, yes, it's worth it. We've covered a lot today: the paralysis of depression, the trap of ego, the war within the mind, the strategic path of the conscious warrior, and the healing power of the breath. Each of these isn't just a concept, it's a piece of the puzzle. You're not broken, you're in training. Every step you take towards awareness, towards stillness, is a step away from the chaos that once consumed you. So, if this episode resonated with you, let it be your turning point. Because the more you heal yourself, the more your presence becomes medicine for others. And that's how we change the world. Not all at once, but breath by breath. one awakened soul at a time. Positivity isn't a trend, it's a responsibility, a light that refuses to go out, especially when the world needs it most. Let it begin with you. Let it shine through your presence, your words, your breath, because the way you live has the power to awaken something sacred in others. Until next time, keep coming back to yourself, keep choosing awareness, and take it one conscious breath at a time. See you in episode 8. Namaste.